If Pokemon Red and Blue had one major issue, it's the fact that this generation's trainers don't have very good moves. Even at the end of the game, you can find opponents still using completely terrible moves like Whirlwind or Poison Sting, in spite of the fact that they're supposed to be some of the toughest trainers in the game. But what if we fixed that? What if we gave every trainer in Gen 1 their Pokemon's competitive movesets? How much harder would this game be? Would it prove to be a major challenge, or is the AI just too dumb to properly use these movesets in order to gain any advantage on the player? Well, I wanted to dig into this and find out. Now, we previously did this challenge in Pokemon Yellow. You can check that video out in the link in the description, but today we're coming back in Pokemon Blue version for a very specific reason. You see, while I would normally argue that Red and Blue is easier than Pokemon Yellow given the movesets of your opponents, in this case, Pokemon Red and Blue might actually be harder than Pokemon Yellow. Consider that 3 of the gym leaders, Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, and Blaine, actually have smart AI in Pokemon Red and Blue when they didn't have smart AI in Pokemon Yellow. On top of that, the champion is basically running a mostly competitive team, especially if he has the Charizard team. He's going to be rocking Charizard, of course, but also Exeggutor, Gyarados, Rhydon, Alakazam, leaving the only Pokemon that's really not very good competitively being Pidgeot. So with really strong movesets, that team could be incredibly OP. So the question is, will this version of the game turn out to be even more difficult than Pokemon Yellow, given competitive movesets, or is it actually going to be a breeze? Well, let's get into it and find out. So as Professor Oak meets us outside of Pallet Town, he's going to take us back to his lab, where he's been doing extensive amounts of studying on competitive Pokemon, and he thinks he's finally got 3 starters in the ball with competitive movesets. Now, in order to make sure that our rival has what I think is the best final team, I'm going to pick Bulbasaur as my starter. It is a good Pokemon here in the early game, but of course we also have the advantage of sleep tactics right from the first rival fight. We are coming into this fight with Sleep Powder, Razor Leaf, Swords Dance, and Body Slam, whereas our rival's Charmander has Fire Spin, Slash, Seismic Toss, and Fire Blast. I think the only strategy is to go for Sleep Powder, but a single Fire Blast ends me, meaning that the rival takes the first victory. So that's unfortunate. Even with these incredibly good moves, the fact that Bulbasaur is slower than Charmander is a serious issue. So today I'm going to be playing with the following rules. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that the AI has certain limitations. Number one, it's never going to just swap out its Pokemon when it gets put to sleep or frozen. In fact, the only trainers in the game that will ever swap their Pokemon are Cool Trainers, Jugglers, and Agatha, and they all just simply do so randomly. So we could absolutely abuse that with, say, our Bulbasaur by just spamming Sleep Powder on everything. So I'm going to use a modified Sleep Clause in this run. I can only sleep 1 Pokemon per battle. Same for Freeze and same for Paralysis. On top of that, I have a level cap for every gym, which is the lowest level of the next gym leader's team. That could actually present an additional challenge in this version because both Misty and Lieutenant Surge's weakest Pokemon is level 18, meaning in theory we would have to beat Misty at less than level 18 so that we could be at the proper level when we get to Lieutenant Surge. On top of that, we're going to only use the same number of Pokemon in battle as our opponent, so 2 for Brock, 2 for Misty, 3 for Surge, and so on and so forth. Finally, I did not choose these movesets myself, because we could sit here and debate till we're blue in the face what the proper competitive movesets are, especially given the AI of the game. So in order to simplify everything, I simply used the movesets that are posted on Smogon.com. That includes, of course, sample movesets for untiered Pokemon, but at least it gives us a third-party source for what the moveset should be for every single Pokemon. Now, in addition, we are not going to be allowed to change these movesets in any way, shape, or form, so we cannot simply start spamming TMs like Double Team or Rest in order to progress in the game. Now, on top of that, we are running with no stat experience, and our DVs are fixed for all of our Pokemon at 8 in every stat except for Attack, which has a DV of 9. Those are the same DVs as our opponents. This will guarantee that at the same level, our Pokemon will be the same as our opponent's Pokemon, basically matching the fact that everybody in Gen 1 competitive maximizes their stat experience as well as matching levels. So this could prove to be a challenge, but let's see how much. I think we cruised through the early game, but maybe something later on is actually really difficult. Now, of course, that leaves the decision at the beginning of the game of what is our second Pokemon for Brock, and I'm actually going to use Butterfree. Got a few advantages. It knows Mega Drain, Psychic, and it has Sleep Powder and Stun Spore, so ways to get status on his Pokemon. I think this Pokemon will be enough, but let's test this out. Of course, against the Bug Catcher at the end of Viridian Forest, a single Psychic will just destroy the Weedle, but we would expect that. But now it is time to get into the Brock fight and see how he actually goes, because with Earthquake and Rock Slide, he might actually have a chance here. So Brock attempt number 1 on the Geodude, I'm simply going to go Mega Drain, and we get a nice easy one-hit KO even with a Butterfree. And now against the Onix, it knows Bind, Body Slam, Earthquake, and Explosion. We're just hoping for Earthquake here. Instead he goes Bind, then Body Slam, but after that, a critical hit Mega Drain one-shots that Pokemon, meaning that we easily get through Brock on the first attempt. So with that, we are ready to progress in the game, and it's just time to see how we do. We have 2 Pokemon that I think are reasonably good to take on Misty, so we'll just have to see what level we can actually get there at. So as we get to the end of Mount Moon, of course, we have the Super Nerd in front of us. Last time when we were running a Pikachu and Nidorino team, we actually struggled on this guy in Pokemon Yellow because he has 3 Pokemon that can self-destruct. However, here we have access to Butterfree that knows the move Psychic, as well as Sleep Powder on our Bulbasaur. So here we can even sleep the first Pokemon and set up Swords Dance, hoping to just sweep now with Body Slam. It's not quite a one-hitter there after 2 Swords Dances, so 3 Swords Dances will hopefully get the job done. Voltorb is out next. We are no longer allowed to sleep our opponent, but we one-shot that Pokemon, and Coughing goes for Thunderbolt, the worst move it could have gone for against our Bulbasaur, so we actually managed to get the win. With that, we will pick up Lord Dome, of course, and make our way out of this section of the game. It's time to move on to rival number 2 and Misty. Now, rival 2 has 4 Pokemon, so in theory, we could sit here and, get 2 more Pokemon to try to take on this fight. I'm just not sure that we need them, given the fact that we have Sleep and we have some decent moves to be able to set up with. Still, we've got to test it out, so let's get into this fight and see if it's winnable or not. So attempt number 1 against the rival, he does not yet have Smart AI. Smart AI doesn't come in until rival 3, so here he's just going to attack randomly. He knows Double Edge, Quick Attack, Wing Attack, and Mirror Move with this Pidgeotto. We kind of want him to just use Mirror Move turn 1. Quick Attack's also not the end of the world, but he still knocks out our Bulbasaur in 2 hits. And then he goes Wing Attack against our Butterfree, so he's using like the best strategies possible here. Still, we get a special drop with our first Psychic, and we end up knocking him down in 3 turns. We get to level 15 as the Abra comes out. Now it goes Psychic though and ends us. So we lose the first attempt against the rival. And it's pretty clear that we're going to have some issues in this fight because he has a lot of good moves against our 2 Pokemon just with his Pidgeotto lead. Still, this time I'm going to get all these Swords Dance set up, and then we can Body Slam twice to take down Pidgeotto. Abra goes for Seismic Toss, ending our Bulbasaur, and now Seismic Toss again on our Butterfree, and then it paralyzes Butterfree, and we once again get destroyed. So we might need an additional Pokemon here, but before we go that way, let's go ahead and get into the gym, because even under leveled, we might be able to beat Misty with our Bulbasaur and our Butterfree. So Misty leads off with Staryu, and this Pokemon knows Surf, Thunder Wave, Thunderbolt, and Recover, so it's a pretty good situation for our Bulbasaur. She just goes Recover turn 1 because that's the only move that she sees as being not resisted. So we can actually knock this Pokemon out for free with Razor Leaf. That's one of the issues of Gen 1 Smart AI. Out next, however, is this Starmie, and it knows Psychic, which is super effective against us so we're definitely going to get hit by that move and one-shot with our first Pokemon. We've still got Butterfree as a backup. She goes Thunder Wave as we land a Sleep Powder, and now we're going to start going for Mega Drain if we can actually move. Unfortunately, she wakes up and she starts recovering, and Mega Drain just isn't doing that much damage given that we're at such a low level, so we simply lose. Quick note from editor Teo here. The Bubble Beam on this Starmie's moveset is not actually correct. That should have been Blizzard in that place, meaning this Pokemon would have simply destroyed Butterfree even faster. And the issue comes from the fact that in Pokemon Red and Blue, unlike Pokemon Yellow, unique moves for trainers are handled very, very differently. You see, in Pokemon Red and Blue, because very few trainers actually have unique moves, it's only the gym leaders, the Elite Four, and the champion, the game simply looks up a value at the time of battle to apply a special move to that Pokemon, specifically the TMs that the gym leaders know, or in the case of the Elite Four members, they each have a unique move on one of their Pokemon. And while I had thought that I had removed that from the ROM hack as I was making it, turns out that it didn't actually take effect, so Bubble Beam got overwritten onto the third move slot of this Starmie. That being said, you'll see that in the end, that doesn't actually make that much of a difference here as we get into the next attempt on Misty. Now, there is a chance that she'll use X Defense on her Pokemon. It's just completely random, but that theoretically could give us a chance against that Starmie, because if she just X Defense and allows us to put her to sleep, we could, in theory at least, win this fight. This time, she actually gets a Gen 1 miss with Psychic, allowing us to put Starmie to sleep. Now I'm going to go for Razor Leaf, and since this move is basically a guaranteed crit in Gen 1, it takes only 3 hits from this move to knock Starmie out, and just like that, we managed to beat Misty on the second attempt. And here I accidentally delayed evolution to Ivysaur, so I'm simply going to give a rare candy in order to evolve here. Of course, that gets us to level 18 though, so we're not going to be able to use this Pokemon in the next gym battle if we get over this level. So we're going to have to be kind of careful here. So back to the rival now. I think the only strategy is to go Sleep Powder on the Pidgeotto, and now we want to set up our Swords Dance. Unfortunately, we get knocked out when Pidgeotto wakes up, meaning that we're back to using only Butterfree for the rest of this fight, and our moves simply are not going to do enough damage, so it seems like we need to catch an additional Pokemon. And since the rival has 4 Pokemon, I just went ahead and caught 2 outside of Cerulean City. We add a Rattata that knows Super Fang, Body Slam, Blizzard, and Thunderbolt, and a Sandshrew that knows Swords Dance, Body Slam, Earthquake, and Rock Slide. And this might give us a better chance of getting through the rival. So instead of leading off with Ivysaur, I'm going to lead off with Sandshrew in this next one, where I think we can go Swords Dance first, and then let's just Rock Slide on this first Pidgeotto. We just barely miss getting the one-hit KO, and we get knocked out after a Gen 1 miss from Body Slam. Still, Pidgeotto knocked itself out with Recoil from Double Edge, so we get a move on in this fight. So let's bring out our Rattata, where I think Stab Body Slam is the way to go. We break the Substitute turn 1, it substitutes again turn 2, we break that again. Psychic unfortunately ends us. So now we need to find a way through this Pokemon. It substitutes again with Abra, and then we get Seismic Toss. So finally, we are going to knock that Pokemon out. That brings us to the Rattata, where I think Razor Leaf is the best play. We get the one-hit KO, and now Charmander, I think we have to put this Pokemon to sleep. Fortunately, we are using an evolved Pokemon here, which gives us a pretty big advantage. And since Charmander's asleep, I'm going to swap in my Butterfree and just start going for Psychic, hoping to knock it out. It takes 3 Psychics, but we do get through that time. So just having more Pokemon on the team was the key. And since Bulbasaur is already at our next level cap, I'm just going to use these other Pokemon to get through the Nugget Bridge and get up to Bill's house. And here, of course, Bill is going to run into the Cell Separator. He's trying to figure out the perfect competitive move set for every single Pokemon by combining with them. He clearly has been getting a lot of comments about how he's using the wrong move set. But with that, we can move on in the game. We've got just a couple trainers to fight, and then we can get to Rival 3 on the SSN. So here it is time for the rival. Of course, he has a Kadabra, he has a Rattata, and he has his middle stage evolution of his starter, Charmeleon. So this could be tough, but let's see how it actually goes. I'm going to lead off with my Rattata in this one. So against his Pidgeotto, I think we just go Body Slam, but Double Edge simply one-shots me. So let's see how we do instead if we come out with our Sandshrew and go for the Rock Slide. Takes 2 Rock Slides to knock Pidgeotto out, but we do manage to get through. Now we've got to deal with this Raticate that goes Bubble Beam. He has Smart AI now, so he's actually going to use the best possible moves. So when I send out my Butterfree, he's going to use Bubble Beam still because he doesn't know Blizzard, but then he goes Hyper Beam and destroys my Pokemon, meaning I have to come out with my Ivysaur. We used Razor Leaf to knock him out, but we took a Super Fang, so we're on half health. Now, this Kadabra knows Psychic, and it's only going to use that move against Ivysaur, meaning we simply lose. So I think we need to lead off with our Sandshrew here. Let's try this one again. And here I think we really need to set up Swords Dance first and then go for the Rock Slide. We missed the first Rock Slide, hit the second one, and that is a one-shot on the Pidgeotto as we get to level 18. Now Raticate once again destroys our Pokemon though. Here I think Ivysaur is maybe the best play. We're going to go for the Razor Leaf. It's going to take 2 hits to knock this Pokemon out, but with that we have moved on. We get to level 19 though, meaning that this Pokemon can no longer be used against Surge. Now we've got to deal with Kadabra. I think the best play is our Rattata, and we're hoping that Body Slam will do the trick. We paralyze it and knock it out in 2. That brings out the Charmeleon, where I think Body Slam is still the play. He wants to go for Seismic Toss because of the fact that we are normal type, and then he goes Fire Blast on our Butterfree, resulting in another loss. Still, I think with slightly better luck, we can get this one to go. So I'm going to knock out the Pidgeotto again, and now we survive the Bubble Beam and use Earthquake to one-shot the Raticate after a single Swords Dance with our Sandshrew. So we're to Kadabra, still with Sandshrew here. He goes Psychic, knocking that Pokemon out, but I'm going to switch to our Rattata because we know that he's only going to use Seismic Toss because of the fact that we are a normal type Pokemon. Still, after that Pokemon goes down, we'll switch to Butterfree. He's going to go for Thunder Wave on us because of the fact that we are a flying type. But after that, he'll simply randomize using things like Recover and Psychic. So unfortunately, we go down. And of course, when we get to Ivysaur, he's just going to use Psychic and we lose. So clearly we need to do a little bit better than that. But we have the basic strategy with our first Sandshrew, of course. Swords Dance, Rock Slide, then Earthquake, and then we're just really hoping for a recover on full health from Kadabra, I think. We don't get it that time, so instead we'll have to swap to our Rattata. Here we really need a critical hit, just like that, or of course a paralysis. And that brings us to the final Charmeleon, where I think our best play is to go for Body Slam. Of course, it simply knocks us out, and we're really hoping for a miss from Fire Blast at this point in order to progress. It's a 15% chance. Here he instead misses Fire Spin. That allows us to put the Charmeleon to sleep, set up a Swords Dance, and now go into Body Slam. So we finally managed to win, beating the rival after like 5 attempts there. So that was not pretty, definitely not what we were hoping for, but we did manage to win, and we still have 3 of our Pokemon under level 18 going into the Lieutenant Surge fight. Unfortunately, Ivysaur is gonna have to sit this one out. And while I do think we could go ahead and catch like a Diglett, I'm gonna try to go with my team as is and just see if I can manage the win against Surge or not. So after digging through the trash man's garbage, we make it to Lieutenant Surge. It's time to see if we can manage to beat him. I think the only strategy is to lead off with our Sandshrew, hopefully be able to sweep the team with our Earthquakes, but let's see how it actually works. So Lieutenant Surge leads off with Voltorb, which of course doesn't have anything good here. It can basically only go Takedown or Explosion against the Sandshrew. So we're just going to try to set up Swords Dance and then go for Earthquake, which will get an easy one-hit KO on Voltorb. We level up to level 19 here as Pikachu comes out, and notice this Pikachu knows Surf. So it has a super effective move to use against Sandshrew. We survive with 1 HP though, allowing us to use Earthquake to knock Pikachu out. That brings out Raichu, which of course knows Thunderbolt, Surf, Thunder Wave, and Body Slam. And we're going to get surfed and knocked down here. So we're going to need a better setup. So I'm going to come out with Rattata next and hope that we can manage to maybe get a paralysis with Body Slam. He Body Slams us, however, after paralyzing us, and we simply go down. Now we've got Butterfree, and it's a 50-50 shot that he goes Thunderbolt or that he goes for Thunder Wave. We really want Thunder Wave here. Instead, he goes Thunderbolt, and we lose. Still, I think this is a winnable fight, so let's try it again. So same strategy on the Voltorb, but this time it goes Explosion, knocking out my Sandshrew. So with that, there's really nothing to do. We just have to go all in on attack against the Pikachu with Rattata and knock it out. And then we get Thunderbolted by the Raichu. So yet again, Butterfree, we're hoping for Thunder Wave. Instead, he goes X Speed, allowing us to land Sleep. And now we can go for Psychic. We're not doing a lot of damage. We really need a special drop, I think. Instead, we get a nice crit there, but it's just not enough as the Raichu knocks out Butterfree. So I'm going to come back 2 levels higher with my Rattata, just making sure that it's a little bit stronger here. It still can't evolve into Raticate until level 20, but maybe this will prove to be enough. So as usual, Explosion does not quite knock out Sandshrew, but we're going to simply get knocked out immediately by Pikachu. But now let's see how we do with our Rattata. We're still slower, but Body Slam with a critical hit one-shots there. And now I'm simply going to go for Super Fang on the Raichu. Surf is strong enough to one-shot that Pokemon though, and Thunderbolt, no matter what we do, will always beat our Butterfree. This time he X speeds on Raichu though, so we actually land an Earthquake with Sandshrew and take it down to very low health. So now if we can land any attack whatsoever on this Raichu, we will in fact win. He goes Thunder Wave on Rattata and Body Slam ends it. So that took tons and tons of attempts to get through Lieutenant Surge. Usually I clown on him as being the trash man, but this time he was actually legit. So that took tons and tons of attempts to get through Lieutenant Surge. Usually I clown on him as being the trash man, but this time he was actually legit. But with that, we are ready to move on in the game, and let's just see how we do through the rest of Kanto, given the fact that these gym leaders are proving to be pretty darn hard. And on top of that, we can't gain levels at a massive rate going forward. For Erika, our level cap is level 24, the level of her Tangela. Koga's level cap is level 37, and then Sabrina's level cap is level 38. So really, as we go through things like Silphco, we aren't actually going to be able to gain that many additional levels with our Pokemon. But for now, let's simply make our way through Rock Tunnel and see how we do in this next section, where hopefully we have enough moves to take down all of these opponents. Now, fortunately, none of these random overworld trainers that we have to fight at this point in the game have smart AI, so we actually have a reasonable chance of getting through all of them, provided that we simply use the right Pokemon against each trainer. For example, against this first Pokemaniac, I think Ivysaur is the way to go, with Razor Leaf one-shotting the Cubone, and it's still going to be super effective here against the Slowpoke as well, so we get a very easy victory. So we pretty easily get to the self-destruct hiker in the middle of this section, where fortunately Stab Razor Leaf is going to be more than enough for all of these Pokemon. We can simply hold Auto A and easily win. And with that, we will have made it basically through the Rock Tunnel, and we're ready to go take on Erika, but I think we might need a few levels first. Now here we will level up our Rattata and get a Raticate, where we actually have a moveset change. You see, on Smogon, this Pokemon is listed as having Super Fang, Body Slam, Hyper Beam, and Bubble Beam. Obviously, Body Slam and Hyper Beam are good moves because they're same type. Bubble Beam is basically to deal with those rock ground types. I mean, basically every rock type is also a ground type, and then Super Fang gives you coverage for everything else by allowing you to do at least half damage. Super Fang even affects ghosts in Gen 1. We also evolved Sandshrew into Sandslash, necessitating more moveset changes, where this Pokemon now has Hyper Beam and Substitute instead of having Body Slam and Rock Slide. I think the theory is to set up Substitute, set up Swords Dance, and try to sweep your opponents. Still, it's always kind of interesting to see how movesets change depending on the Pokemon and where it is tiered in competitive. I'm just using rare candies to level my Pokemon up quickly because I have a baby who's sleeping in the other room. He could wake up at any moment. That's what I'm actually racing against here, is how long can my baby sleep before I have to stop this run. But with that, I think we're ready to get into Erika's gym and just see if we can actually manage to beat her. Of course, if we fail, there are some Pokemon available, but I'm gonna try with my team as is. So against Erika, she leads off with Victory Bell, which is 5 levels higher than us. And against our Ivysaur, it's just going to go either Hyper Beam or Wrap. We're kind of happy that we survived the Hyper Beam here. And now we can set up Swords Dance. Unfortunately, it wakes up very quickly and we simply get wrapped down. So I think Butterfree is the natural play here, but Hyper Beam one-shots me. That means that we have to send out our Raticate, and we're hoping our Hyper Beam will one-shot. We get a critical hit, so we do get through the first Pokemon. Let's go Hyper Beam on Tangela. It's looking to be a 2-hitter as we have to recharge and then get a critical hit on us. So unfortunately, we simply lose that attempt. Still, if we can just manage to sleep a Victory Bell, we should have a chance here. So once again, we put this Pokemon to sleep. We set up a couple of Swords Dances. Now let's go Body Slam, and it misses a Hyper Beam. So we actually managed to knock the first Pokemon out. We'll go Body Slam on Tangela. We get a Paralysis. So technically, we can't get any more paralysis in this run. So we're kind of hoping not to get this Vileplume paralyzed. We do paralyze it, so we have to reset. Let's try this whole thing again. And of course, we're hoping Victory Bell either misses Hyper Beam or misses Wrap here. When she doesn't do either, we simply go down. Still, let's see how we do here with a Hyper Beam from our Raticate. Without a critical hit, it is a 2-hit KO from this move, and then Razor Leaf destroys us. Now, one thing about Gen 1 AI is that the AI chooses its move just when it's about to be used. So there's no advantage to swapping your Pokemon in and out against the AI, because it will always use whatever it thinks is the correct move based on its AI script. So you can't get a situation where, for example, Erika will try to use Razor Leaf against our Butterfree because she only checks what move to use just before she uses it. So after we have already swapped our Pokemon. And one thing that's really setting Pokemon Red and Blue apart from Pokemon Yellow is that your opponents, because of the fact that I'm setting my level cap at the lowest level of the gym leader's team, often have Pokemon that are significantly out-leveling mine. Meaning this is significantly harder than Pokemon Yellow in my opinion. So here we managed to again paralyze Tangela, and I think we just have to go for something else because we don't want to accidentally paralyze Vileplume. It knocks me out with a Hyper Beam. So now let's go with our Raticate, where I think we go Hyper Beam on the Vileplume. It Hyper Beams us. We survive. Both have to recharge, but because we're faster, we knock her out on that attempt. And just like that, we were able to beat Erika. But not so fast. Once again, Tale from the future here. We again had a moveset mistake on this Erika fight. In case you didn't notice, the Vileplume had Thunder Wave in its 3rd move slot. That was a holdover from Lieutenant Surge when I had fixed his moveset, but I accidentally locked it in. However, unlike the Misty fight where Blizzard would likely have been used and knocked our Pokemon out faster, in this case, not having access to Swords Dance and instead having Thunder Wave really didn't affect things that much. For one, it actually caused the Vileplume to attack with Hyper Beam, knocking out my Ivysaur, whereas if it had Swords Dance, it would have been on 50-50 shot that it wouldn't have even used a damage dealing move. And then against the Raticate, it's just going to perfectly randomize between its 4 moves, meaning that Thunder Wave being there actually did not affect the final range of that last fight. Still, this was the point where I realized the mistake, and from there on, we did not have any issues with our movesets going forward. So with that, let's get back to the action. But man, oh man, was that rough. That was not an easy fight whatsoever, and it's got me really nervous going forward, because consider that for like Koga, his ace, the Weezing, is going to be level 43, but we have to go into that fight at level 37. For Sabrina, we also have to go in at level 37. I misspoke earlier because Mr. Mime is at level 37 in that fight, and the Alakazam is at level 43. Lane, we have to go in at level 40, and his ace is at level 47. Do you see this kind of pattern where all of these fights have an opponent that's like 6 or 7 levels higher than us by the time we get to the gym leader's ace? That could prove to be a major issue in this run. But for now, I think there's nothing to do but take care of the Rocket hideout and make our way over to rival number 4. And this is the first time he's going to have a Gyarados on his team, so this could actually be really tough as well. So I'm going to try him with my team as we are right now, but honestly, I'm really nervous about this one, and we may not stand a chance to win. We might have to go get a new Pokemon. Let's just see. So of course, he leads off with Pidgeotto. I'm going to send out my Raticate first. Let's go for Body Slam on this. It looks to be a 2-hit KO as we knock that Pokemon out. Execute comes out next. I'm going to go Hyper Beam and get the 1-hit KO. And here against the Gyarados, it knows Hydro Pump, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Body Slam. So a really strong moveset. I think our best strategy is to try to paralyze it. We go Body Slam, it Body Slams in return, and then it misses a Hyper Beam, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. Now Kadabra, Hyper Beam is the play. We one-shot it, and Charmeleon comes out. I'm just going to stick with Hyper Beam, and we sweep the entire team with our Raticate. And now fortunately we have access to our Sandslash for the rest of this section of the game, which should make pretty quick work of these channelers. So let's just make our way to the top of the tower and save Mr. Fuji. And of course, it's at this point that I realize I forgot to do the Rocket Game Corner. We're not going to Pokédoll Glitch here. So let's go ahead and go back and fight against Giovanni and see how that fight goes, given that he has better moves than he would normally have with his team. So after making it to Giovanni, I'm just going to go in with Raticate to lead off since it does know Bubble Beam, 4 times super effective against the rocks. Let's just see how this goes. Giovanni, of course, leads off with Onix. I go Bubble Beam and get a 1-hit KO. Rhyhorn's out next. It gets more of the same action. Now Kangaskhan, his strongest Pokemon here, knows Body Slam, Hyper Beam, Earthquake, and Surf. So I think our best play is just go Hyper Beam. It does not get the 1-hitter, and Body Slam did massive damage, but then he goes for a Guard Spec. Good job, Giovanni, giving us a free victory. Another sweep with Raticate. You'd think that Raticate was a top-tier Pokemon based on this performance, but yeah. We aren't using really any top tier Pokemon at this point, but we are progressing in the game. So there is something to be said for that, I guess. Because of course, if we wanted to go really hard, we could get things like Jolteon here. We could get things like Kadabra, Haunter. There are plenty of Pokemon available that would be much better than most of what we're using. And yet we're still finding ways to progress in the game. So I consider that to be a small win, even though some of these fights are pretty darn inconsistent. In fact, I'm going to try to beat the game this time without using any of the Pokemon that I used in the Pokemon Yellow run, which means that Pokemon like Jolteon, Kadabra, Haunter are off the table. They cannot be used in this challenge. Nidoking won't be available, so we're just going to have to see how this goes. But now with the Pokeflute in hand, I think our best decision is to go and take on Koga, especially considering our team composition. I mean, we're going to have Sandslash, which deals super effective damage, but really the only Pokemon on our team that's currently weak against poison is, of course, Butterfree, and we probably just won't use it here, but even if we do, at least it knows Psychic, so it does have a super effective move. And of course, the level cap here is level 37, but we have to be careful because it's the same level cap that we have against Sabrina. So we can't just go crazy here. We've got to try to get through this at as low level as possible so that we can keep some of our team for the next fight. So here I'm going to make sure to get Ivysaur to evolve into Venusaur before this fight, just so that we're even a little bit stronger. That evolution, of course, necessitates changing Body Slam into Hyper Beam here. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and get Butterfree up to level 32 as well. So we'll basically go in at level 32 this first time, several levels below the level cap, but I just want to see how we do before we get up to level 36, 37, which is the level cap, because I'd prefer to get through this fight at as low a level as possible so that we can still take down the required trainers in Silphco and have levels left over for Koga himself. So let's get into this and see if it's possible or not at our current level. Raticate is the only Pokemon that's slightly over leveled here. We're going to lead off with our Sandslash since it knows Swords Dance and Earthquake. So first up, he's got the Coughing. This Pokemon knows Sludge, Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, and Explosion. We really just don't want Explosion. And after he X attacks, I think we can just go Earthquake and one-shot the Coughing here. It's an easy one-hit KO. Out next is Muck, which also knows Explosion and Body Slam. He breaks our substitute, but now I'm just going to go Earthquake. After one Swords Dance and a critical hit at least, we do one-shot that Pokemon. Earthquake, I think, is the only play on the Coughing. So that brings us to Wheezing that knows Fire Blast, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Explosion. Sorry, sometimes I have to change the moveset because it had Toxic on there, which is not what is listed as the competitive moveset. But here, basically, we're just hoping, even if he goes Explosion, that's perfectly fine with us. We just need to knock this Pokemon out. He goes X Attack here, allowing us to simply get the one-shot, and we sweep Koga on the first attempt with our Sand Slash. No need to get anywhere near his level. The Poison type is still pretty bad, and Stab Ground is perfectly fine for getting through that gym. So with that out of the way, let's backtrack on to Saffron City, where we can take on Silphco and make our way over to Sabrina. But before that, we've got to take on rival number 5, and this could be an absolutely beastly fight, given the fact that he has his full team essentially, and he's gonna have an Alakazam as well as a Charizard in this fight. So this could be rough. We may need to get basically to the level cap in order to win this, but we can't get over level 37 before Sabrina, so this could be a serious challenge. So here it's time to take on the rival, and honestly, Raticate might be our best lead here, but let's just see how this fight actually goes. So first off, he has a level 37 Pidgeot. I think we just go Body Slam here, and it goes for Sky Attack. We're going to go Hyper Beam and not quite get the KO. Still, he doesn't quite KO us with the Sky Attack, so we managed to get through. Execute, I'm going to go Hyper Beam. It's not a one-hitter, so he explodes, but we, hey, at least got through that Pokemon. Now to his Gyarados, we're going to send out our Venusaur, so he's either going to go Hyper Beam or Body Slam, but I managed to Sleep Powder this Pokemon. Due to the fact that we're 1 point in speed faster, we do have a badge boost in speed from Koga. So with that, I'm now going to set up some Swords Dances, and then let's go into the Hyper Beam here, getting the one-hit KO. Alakazam's out next. We outspeed thanks to the badge boost glitch. Now I'm playing with badges because last time turning the badges off broke the game at the end. So yeah, here with the badge boost, we actually outspeed there. Now we level up against the Charizard though, and I'm basically sure we're dead. Sure enough, a single hit from that Fire Blast does us in. So let's bring out Sand Slash instead. He goes Fire Blast and ends us, and Butterfree, he misses the Fire Blast, so we actually put him to sleep, only for him to immediately wake up, but we get a special drop, but it doesn't matter. He still destroys us. So badge boosts or not, we still lose this fight. This time we get a better range on that Pidgeot though, so now I'm going to Body Slam here on the Execute and then go for the Hyper Beam. We still don't quite get the 2-hit range, meaning we get knocked out by Explosion again. Honestly, maybe we're better off going with Butterfree here against Gyarados. He goes Thunderbolt, but then we can simply put this Pokemon to sleep and start going into the Psychic on it. We get a nice special drop there, which enables us to knock that Pokemon out. Now we can't sleep anything else, so I'm going to go for Stun Spore here instead. And then we can go for something like Mega Drain just to deal a little damage before it knocks us out. I'm going to send out the Sand Slash and go for Hyper Beam. We miss. We hit the next Hyper Beam, but it's not quite a one-hit KO. Still, he fails to knock us out, so we can take that Pokemon down. Now we've got the Charizard. It goes Swords Dance, so we go Hyper Beam. It goes Body Slam, Swords Dance again, so we Hyper Beam again on that Pokemon. But now we're to Venusaur, and we just have to survive. He misses the Fire Blast. So just like that, we do manage to win without adding additional Pokemon and only a couple attempts there. But man, oh man, that was rough. So here, I guess we'll pick up a new Pokemon since it's free. We get a Lapras. Good on us. That's now officially like our best Pokemon as far as tiering goes. But let's just see how this goes. I think it's a good addition to the team because it has a great moveset: Blizzard, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Sing. So I think we're going to keep this Pokemon as part of our team going forward. But with that done, we can now move on. Let's make our way to Giovanni himself. Now, Giovanni has 4 Pokemon, and I think the best play is to lead off with Sandslash, since I think it's the best Pokemon against his entire team. But let's see how this actually goes. So of course he leads off with Nidorino. I'm just going to set up a Swords Dance here. He goes Blizzard, doing massive damage. So now I think we just go Earthquake. We one-shot that Pokemon, fortunately, but then we get surfed by Kangaskhan. So against this one, I'm going to send out Venusaur next. Let's go for the Razor Leaf, which does over half. Body Slam did a lot, but we do manage to knock Kangaskhan out. Now we've got the Rhyhorn, which is an easy one-hit KO with the Razor Leaf. And we've got to deal with Nidoqueen. It goes Blizzard, destroying our Venusaur. So now I think Lapras is the play. I'm going to go for Sing, trying to put this one to sleep. We do manage to land it. It wakes up immediately, though. Still, Blizzard is doing enough damage that if we hit, we would have won, but we get paralyzed by Thunderbolt. So that Pokemon goes down. I think the last Pokemon we'll use in this one is Raticate, because we only have 1 Pokemon left. But here Hyper Beam does the job, so we beat Giovanni on the first attempt. But again, he looks tougher than normal, definitely, because usually you come in a solo run and you just completely destroy Giovanni like he's a joke, but not here. He's actually posing serious issues for us. So now let's go ahead and just get into Sabrina's gym. I'm going to try her once with my team as it is at our current levels, but I highly anticipate that we're going to have to level up here in order to have any reasonable chance. Still, I think our best play is to lead off with the Raticate. It has good speed, plus it has access to strong stab normal moves that might be able to knock out things like Kadabra. Let's test it out. So first up, we've got the Kadabra. I'm going to go for Hyper Beam here as she goes for Seismic Toss. We get an easy one-hit KO and get to level 34. Mr. Mime comes out next. More Hyper Beam, more one-hit KO action. Now Venomoth. We do not get the one-hitter on this Pokemon, meaning that it pretty easily knocks us out. I'm going to follow up with Sandslash here since it's another good physical attacker. She goes Stun Spore, but we managed to knock out the Venomoth. That brings us to Alakazam. It knows Psychic, Seismic Toss, Thunder Wave, and Recover. We're really hoping for Seismic Toss or Recover here as we set up a substitute. Unfortunately, we were fully paralyzed, so we simply get destroyed. The next Pokemon I think has to be Lapras, because I think it's the only thing that's really survivable here. She goes for Thunder Wave, paralyzing us, but we put Alakazam to sleep, and now I think we can go for the Hyper Beam. It does about half. Fortunately, she stays asleep, allowing us to knock her out with another Hyper Beam. So just like that, we do manage to beat Sabrina on the first attempt. We did not have to get to the level cap in order to do so, and we're ready to move on to Blaine. So as we enter Blaine's gym, I'm going to come in once again at my current level. We haven't gained any levels since the Sabrina fight. I just want to see if we can get through at our current level, or if this is a situation where we're going to have to grind to get through. Of course, if we knew Tombstoner, this would be an easy victory 100% of the time. Of course, we answered yes, that TM28 is Tombstoner, and we end up having to fight a battle. Just a mistake on my part, but we'll easily dispatch this guy so that we can get to the gym leader. And with that, I think we're ready to go. We have up to 4 Pokemon in this battle, so I think we're gonna leave probably Butterfree out of this and just use the other 4. But let's see how we actually do in this fight. I think Sandslash is the natural lead here. So first up against Blaney Boy, I'm going to lead off with a substitute with my Sandslash and then start setting up some Swords Dances here. He's going to do some random things like agility and using a full health super potion. This is the smart AI of Blaine in Pokemon Red and Blue. Now, he does manage to hit us once with a Body Slam, but because we have 3 Swords Dances, we simply one-shot here against the Growlithe. Ponyta's out next. We one-shot it again with Earthquake. Now Rapidash, he goes for a full health Super Potion, so we one-shot that Pokemon, and Arcanine tries to rest. Good job, Arcanine. So we simply win. So it turns out that all you need to do against Blaine is have a Sandslash that knows Substitute, Swords Dance, and Earthquake. And this is a pretty easy fight, even coming in under-leveled. And with that, there's only one gym left to take on. Of course, we have to come take on Giovanni. I think our team's good enough for this fight, though. Consider that we've got Venusaur, Lapras, and Sandslash that all have super effective moves here. So this really shouldn't be too bad, but let's see how it actually goes. So here, I think I'm going to lead off with our Venusaur just to see how this goes. Because, I mean, he leads off with a Rhyhorn. I think we'll one-shot it. Then it's just how do we do against Dugtrio, the Nidos, and, of course, the final Rhydon. We should outspeed with basically everything. So that should be a pretty easy Pokemon to get through. But let's just see how this goes at our current level. So first up, of course, we have the level 45 Rhyhorn. I'm just going to go for Razor Leaf and get a one-hit KO on that Pokemon. Dugtrio's at level 42. It goes Slash, but we go for Razor Leaf. Again, it's an easy one-hitter as we get to level 35. Now Nidoqueen hits Blizzard, which ends us, but I think that's to be expected. Let's move on to our Sandslash. So here we get Blizzard again, which simply ends that Pokemon. Nothing we can do there. Let's send out Raticate. We go for Body Slam. We do not get the Paralysis. And given our low level, we aren't able to knock it out even with a critical hit from Hyper Beam. Lapras is our last hope. He guard specs. Good job, Giovanni. That allows us to knock that Pokemon out. Now we get Thunderbolt from the Nidoking, but Blizzard does massive damage and gets the freeze. So we can simply Hyper Beam to finish that Pokemon off. I'm going to Sing on the Rhydon, but it was actually faster than Lapras here by 3 points in speed. So that did not work, but we saw that we can get up to level 42 here. So let's simply level up with our team. So here I've simply gotten everything to level 40, and let's just see if this level is enough. So once again, we lead off with our Venusaur. We're going to go Razor Leaf on the first Rhyhorn and get the one-hit KO. Dugtrio comes out. It goes Rock Slide. Good job, Dugtrio. You simply get destroyed. Nidoqueen's out next. We're going to go for Razor Leaf. We actually outspeed here, and Blizzard does not one-hit KO us, so we nearly knocked this Pokemon out. So let's follow up now with Raticate, where we can simply Body Slam to finish that Pokemon off. We'll go for Super Fang to cut Nidoking's HP in half, just to guarantee we do as much as possible. Now I'll Body Slam it. A crit knocks that Pokemon out, and we can go Bubble Beam on the Rhydon. It does about half as we get knocked out with our Raticate. So now let's send out Sandslash and go for Earthquake, and we end it just like that. 2 attempts to beat Giovanni, but, you know, just being closer to his level. Still didn't have to actually hit the level cap in order to have a chance there. Of course, the whole issue with these gym leaders is that you know what their teams are, and they all have a theme, so they always have type weaknesses. The real test here is going to be the Rival 6 and Champion fights, since these teams are diverse enough that we can't just take advantage of one type weakness. So here, let's get into this rival fight. I'm going to lead off with my Lapras, and let's just see how it goes. Now, of course, against Pidgeot, the only play is to go Blizzard. He goes Hyper Beam, though, and a critical hit one-hit KOs me. So I'm going to respond with my own Raticate using Hyper Beam. But here, we only did about half before we get one-shot by another Hyper Beam. So Sandslash is out next. It takes the Hyper Beam and returns, but does not quite do enough. So it takes 2 Hyper Beams to take that Pokemon down. We can now Earthquake against the Rhyhorn, but this is a 2-hitter. Next, we've got Execute. I think Hyper Beam's the only play, but we do not get the 1-hitter even with a crit, and then it goes Explosion. We actually survive only to get destroyed by Gyarados. So let's send out Butterfree here and go for Psychic. It's definitely not doing enough damage though. So Venusaur, I think we have to sleep this Pokemon. There's really no choice. and then try to set up the swords dances and go for the sweep, but we get destroyed. Still, let's try this one again, because now he goes agility with Pidgeot, allowing us to just one-shot that Pokemon. We can go Blizzard on Rhyhorn and Blizzard on Exeggutor, so we sweep the first 3 Pokemon with Lapras this time. That brings us to Gyarados, where we can go Thunderbolt, and since ours is 4 times super effective, it does a little more damage than the Gyarados' Thunderbolt, but we still do get knocked out there. Still, I will follow with Raticate, where Body Slam will just finish that Pokemon off. Alakazam, I'm going to go for the Hyper Beam here. It's not quite a one-hitter, so he does manage to knock me out. So let's follow up with Sandslash, where we can again go for Hyper Beam. Psychic just ends us though. Definitely not what we wanted. Now with Butterfree, we basically can only go for Mega Drain, and he's using Recover. So we're going to lose this fight again from the looks of things, because Venusaur cannot stand up to that last move. Still, this is looking a little bit better. If we can manage to one-shot the first 3 Pokemon with Lapras, then we should have reasonable odds of getting through here. This time he goes for a Potion on Gyarados, allowing us to knock it out with Lapras. And that brings us to the Alakazam. He goes Seismic Toss. I'm going to go for Blizzard. And we get the Freeze, allowing us to guarantee a win on this Pokemon because we just Hyper Beam it down from there. So now we're out all the way to Charizard. We know it's going to knock us out. That's perfectly fine. Let's send out Raticate and go for the Body Slam, trying to paralyze it. And we get knocked out. That's perfectly fine. Now I'm going to substitute with Sandslash and go for the Hyper Beam as he goes for a Swords Dance. He Swords Dances again, so while he breaks our substitute, we're going to be able to knock him out with a critical hit Hyper Beam on the next turn. So just like that, we do manage to get through the rival. Still not looking great. We're going to need to add another Pokemon to the team in order to have any good odds of getting through there. Of course, we could add a ton of different Pokemon here, but I think what the heck, let's just pick something up on Victory Road. So here I actually just caught a Graveler, specifically just because I think this is going to be a decent Pokemon to use against the champion's Charizard. Like, yes, he knows Earthquake, but the Graveler already knows the move Substitute together with Explosion, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. So a pretty decent set if we can just manage to set up that Substitute before we get to the Charizard. Rock Slide might be enough, or we could go Boom as a way to try to take that Pokemon out at the very end if we have at least one other Pokemon still in the team. So at the very least, it opens up those sorts of strats, and we're ready to make our way into the league with all of our Pokemon around level 40. Question is just, how will we do? Do we need to level up more? The level cap changes for each Elite Four member going up to the champion, but let's see how this goes. So first up is Lorelei. She leads off with a level 54 Dugong. It goes rest turn 1, however, and so that's going to allow us to simply knock this Pokemon out as long as Razor Leaf will actually hit. Sure enough, we get through. Cloyster is out next. It's also level 53. This one also goes for rest turn 1, and then she's super potion, so we knock it out. We've made it to the Slowbro, another amnesia and rest user. This Pokemon will never attack a grass type Pokemon because of her smart AI. So we're simply going to go for Razor Leaf, and we don't even care about Amnesia here because Razor Leaf always crits, and crits ignore stat changes in Gen 1. So the first 3 Pokemon go down with no issues whatsoever. We've made it to the Jinx. Now, of course, Blizzard, Psychic, or Rest is what she's going to use. She goes for Rest, so I'm able to put this Pokemon to sleep. Now I can just stick with Razor Leaf, or I can even go Hyper Beam here. I think Hyper Beam is the correct play. We have to recharge, but after a Super Potion, we can just knock that Pokemon out. That, of course, brings us to Lapras, which we already know knows Blizzard, Thunderbolt, Hyper Beam, and Sing. But we're faster, so we're going to get at least one hit on it with Razor Leaf first. Then it Blizzards to knock knock out our Venusaur. I think that's perfectly fine. We're going to follow up with Raticate here, where we can go for Body Slam to try to get Paralysis. It goes for Thunderbolt. We survive, and then we miss our Hyper Beam. So bad luck there. Still, I think we have a chance. We send out our Sand Slash, but unfortunately we get one shot. Butterfree might be faster here. Let's go for it. The Mega Drain did damage, but not enough after we got the miss from the Blizzard. And then Blizzard is gonna knock us out. I wanted to go Stun Spore after that. For some reason, my overlay's not updating properly, so I can't see the actual stats. So I think the only thing left to do is to go for the Lapras mirror match, where I'm going to go Thunderbolt after she goes Thunderbolt. Our Thunderbolt did not quite do enough, so she knocks us out, and after 5 Pokemon, we have to reset. Still, it's pretty clear that we're just a bit under leveled here, so let's just level up a little bit, and we should be good to go. So let's come back this time at level 48. We've gained a couple of damage rounding thresholds, but more importantly, we're now guaranteed to be faster than pretty much the entire team. Here we just barely survive a Blizzard from Dugong, but we get to knock it out the next turn. Cloyster comes out, we go for Razor Leaf and one-shot it. Once again, we have nothing to fear from Slowbro with our Venusaur, because it's basically just going to use Rest or Amnesia. So we knock that Pokemon out nicely. Jinx comes out next, and Blizzard ends me, but that's perfectly fine. We'll follow up with our Raticate, which can go for Hyper Beam and get the easy one-hit KO. Now we've made it to the final Lapras. I'm going to go Super Fang to cut its HP in half. And now let's go for Hyper Beam. It hits Blizzard and ends us. But now are we faster with Sand Slash? We are, so we hit the Hyper Beam. That did decent damage, taking it down to low health. Lapras can come out now. It hits Thunderbolt on us. We hit Thunderbolt on it, but this time we managed to win. So it definitely made a difference gaining those levels while still keeping us under the level cap. So that, of course, brings us now to Bruno, where I think we're pretty much good with anything, but I'm just going to lead off with Venusaur again, because I think we can get through this team pretty easily, but let's find out. So Bruno attempt number 1, I'm just going to go Razor Leaf on the first Onix. It's an easy one-hit KO. Out next is Hitmonchan. Honestly, I think we Sleep Powder this Pokemon and set up Swords Dance, so that hopefully we can just sweep these Pokemon with our Hyper Beam. Unfortunately, we don't get the one-hitter on Hitmonchan due to a couple of X defense, but we'll knock it out the next turn. Now Hitmonlee comes out, we hit Hyper Beam, it's a one-hit KO. Onix is out next, Razor Leaf will simply do the job, and we've made it to the final Machamp. Hyper Beam does slightly over half due to a critical hit, but then it misses a fissure, so we easily win against Bruno on the first attempt. As usual, he can do nothing. So that brings us to Agatha, and I think the natural play is to lead off with our Sand Slash, since hopefully Stab Earthquake will be enough to get through all the ghosts. Let's see how it actually goes though. So first up against Agatha, I'm going to try to set up a substitute turn 1. We get it. So now we can go for a Swords Dance and then Hyper Beam on the Golbat. It doesn't quite get the one-hit KO with a crit, but we knock it out on the next turn. Now let's go Earthquake on this Gengar, and that's an easy one-hit KO from Sand Slash. Haunter goes Explosion, knocking Sand Slash out, but taking itself down with it. Now let's send out Graveler against the Arbok, because this Pokemon knows Wrap, Glare, Earthquake, and Hyper Beam. So I think we have a chance here. She goes for Earthquake, but I'm going to set up my substitute, and now Earthquake myself as the Gengar comes out as a one-hit KO, and Arbok breaks our substitute, but we Earthquake back, getting the easy one-hit KO victory. So Agatha turns out not to be that bad between Sand Slash and Graveler. And with that, we have made it to Lance. I'm going to lead off with Raticate here because I don't think we really have anything great for the Gyarados. But after that, we may be able to just sweep with something like Lapras. So let's see how this fight actually goes. So first up, of course, we have Gyarados. I'm going to go Super Fang turn 1, and he goes Hyper Beam to knock out my Raticate. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to follow up with Venusaur and try to sleep this Pokemon. And then in theory, we can set up some Swords Dances and even try to sweep with Hyper Beam here. We missed the Hyper Beam and I didn't heal my PP before this fight, so we'll just knock that out with a couple of Razor Leafs instead. First Dragonair comes out, I'll just stick with Razor Leaf as it knocks me out with a Blizzard. That's fine. Lapras is out next. I'm just gonna go Blizzard here. After a Thunder Wave, we simply knock that Dragonair out. Next Dragonair goes Thunderbolt, but it's not that strong, so we one-shot it as well with a Blizzard. Now Aerodactyl, it knows Hyper Beam, Toxic, Fire Blast, and Double Edge. It goes Fire Blast, but that's not really that strong, so Blizzard is gonna take that Pokemon down. We make it to the Dragonite that knows Wrap, Hyper Beam, Thunder Wave, and Blizzard. So it's basically going to go Wrap or Hyper Beam here. It hits the Hyper Beam, knocking us out. Still, we can use 2 more Pokemon. I'm going to try the Sandslash here, going for a substitute. Blizzard just one-shots me though, and of course Graveler, I think, has no chance here. Blizzard simply ends us. So we lose the first attempt. Still, I think we have a chance here. So we can level up here. The level cap is level 56 currently. So I'm just going to get up to level 53 with my Pokemon. That gets us a couple damage rounding thresholds as well as increasing our stats. That might be all we need to actually win. So back to this fight again at level 53. I'm going to Body Slam the Gyarados turn 1. We do very good damage, but we still manage to get knocked out there. However, with it paralyzed, I will simply send out my Graveler and use a Rock Slide to knock that Pokemon out. And then if I survive here, I'm going to Boom, but I didn't manage to against the Dragonair. Might have been better off setting up the substitute there. Still, we managed to send out our Lapras. We take a Thunderbolt and one-shot that first Dragonair. We get Thunder Wave from the second Dragonair and again knock it out. Here, Aerodactyl misses the first Fire Blast, hits the second one. We're just dealing with being fully paralyzed 3-4 turns in a row. That is insanely bad luck. So here I think we've got nothing to do other than to go Razor Leaf with our Venusaur, and we just can't get the misses. I think we have to reset right there. So this time after Raticate gets knocked out, we managed to put in Venusaur and set up all of our Swords Dances, only to find that we can't actually hit Hyper Beam. So instead we Razor Leaf that Pokemon down, and we're just going to have to stick with Razor Leaf on the Dragonair as we get knocked out. We survived the first Blizzard though, so we get it down on fairly low health. So in that case, I'm going to send Butterfree out next. And let's just use Psychic. It doesn't quite get the one-hitter, and he heals. So we're going to lose Butterfree in this. But in fact, we managed to survive and knock that Pokemon out. So here, Blizzard from the next Dragonair will end us. I'll send out Sandslash here just because I kind of want to see what we can do. We do not survive against the Blizzard, so that brings out Lapras. It's our only hope. We go Blizzard there to knock out that Dragonair. Against Aerodactyl, we're just hoping that we can land a Blizzard. We do, so we managed to knock that one out. That brings us to the Dragonite that should only use Thunder Wave against us here because it thinks it's super effective and we have no status. Sure enough, he does, but we're fully paralyzed, so we couldn't use Blizzard. Otherwise, we would have won. So here, I think the best strategy is actually to lead off with Venusaur because we're slightly faster than Gyarados now, so we can put it to sleep, set up our Swords Dances, and then our goal is to sweep the first few Pokemon with Hyper Beam. We missed the first Hyper Beam, but hit the second one. It's not quite a one-hitter due to a crit, but we do manage to take Gyarados down. We'll stick with Hyper Beam on the first Dragonair. That's a one-hitter. Hyper Beam on the second Dragonair also gets the job done. Now we're out of Hyper Beam, so I'm going to switch to Razor Leaf against the Aerodactyl. It's only going to go Toxic or Fire Blast because of my Grass typing. It goes Toxic twice, so we managed to get through that Pokemon. Now we have no choice. We can only go Razor Leaf against Dragonite. We can't put this Pokemon to sleep. Obviously, it's not going to do much damage. Blizzard does a lot to us. We're simply getting knocked out the next turn. But let's send Lapras back out because, again, he has to go for Thunder Wave here. And as long as we hit the Blizzard, we would win. We also survive against the Hyper Beam. So we missed 2 turns to paralysis, but still knocked the Dragonite out. So yeah, it turns out that Venusaur and Lapras are enough to get through that fight. And just like that, we have in fact made it to the champion. I think it's time to recover some PP first. And now it's just time to see if this team of 6 can manage to get through the champion, where our level cap is technically level 59. So we could gain 6 levels with all of our Pokemon and still be okay. But let's see if we can win at our current level. This is the first fight in the game where we can actually use all of our Pokemon, and we're going to lead off with Graveler. Let's see if it's enough. So first up, we've got the Pidgeot, of course. It knows Double Edge, Hyper Beam, Sky Attack, and Agility, but I think it only wants to use Agility because of the fact that we're a Rock type. So I'm going to set up my substitute right here and then go for Rock Slide, which is going to be an easy 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. That brings out the Alakazam, where I think we go for Earthquake here. It breaks our substitute, but 2 Earthquakes will be enough to knock this Pokemon out. Now, Rhydon, the only thing to do is stick with the Earthquake. Unfortunately, it was faster and knocked us out. Still, I think now we can send out Venusaur and go for the Razor Leaf. It should be an easy one-hitter to knock that Pokemon out. Exeggutor is out next. So this Pokemon knows Psychic is the issue, but it's slow. Now we could go for Sleep Powder here. I'm just not sure if we want to, but let's see. If we set up Sleep Powder, we could set up Swords Dance. So that's what I'm going to do. We missed the Sleep Powder though, so we simply go down. I'm going to follow up with Lapras and go for Blizzard. It does about half as we get put to sleep, and then this Pokemon's going Mega Drain on us. So unfortunately, we couldn't sleep that Pokemon and we took massive damage. So now I think it's just Raticate's turn to go out and try to do something, but Mega Drain does way too much. Butterfree is maybe our best option at this point, but it doesn't have any good moves, and then it just takes an explosion. So that leaves only Sandslash for the last 2 Pokemon. We get a Hydro Pump miss from Gyarados, but then the next Hydro Pump hits, and we lose the first attempt. Still, I think we have a chance here, so let's try this one again. So once again, we'll substitute on the first Pidgeot and then go for the Rock Slide. And that's an easy 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. We'll stick with the Earthquake here on the Alakazam since that's all it's going to want to do. And after knocking that Pokemon out, we get to the Rhydon, which does knock out our Graveler. So once again, let's send out Venusaur. Let's go for the Razor Leaf and get the guaranteed KO there. Exeggutor, once again, I'm trying to Sleep Powder this Pokemon. We survive on 1 HP against its Psychic. So now I'm going to Swords Dance up, and with 3 Swords Dances, let's go Hyper Beam and one-shot. Gyarados is out next. I stick with Hyper Beam, but we get a critical hit, so we don't get the one-hitter. That was terrible. But now we have at least a chance. We'll Hyper Beam with Raticate, knocking out Gyarados. That brings out the Charizard. I think we go Body Slam to try to paralyze it, but it knocks me out. Okay. So from there, I think we go Lapras and we go Blizzard, since in Gen 1, fire does not resist ice. We missed the Blizzard though, so it knocks us out. We're down to Butterfree and Sandslash. Let's go with Butterfree and go for a Psychic. It missed 1 Fire Blast, so we got 1 hit there. And now Sandslash, I'm going Substitute as he goes Swords Dance. Now I will go Swords Dance as he breaks my substitute. He Earthquakes, I survive, and I hit the Hyper Beam. So just like that, we managed to win against the champion. But man, that was close. Yes, we went into the fight 6 levels below the level cap, but consider that we had badge boosts in this one. And even then, it was really close. And I guarantee to you that in a normal solo run, with the badge boost glitch, with the normal moveset of this champion, I could beat him with any one of these Pokemon solo, except maybe the Graveler. Granted, in a normal run, my Graveler would know Defense Curl and would be badge boosting up on the very first Pidgeot. But yeah. Honestly, I can't see a situation where we would actually have struggled that much to beat the champion with most of these Pokemon, in spite of the fact that outside of Lapras, none of them are like OU Pokemon. Still, we get through Graveler, Raticate, Butterfree, Sandslash, Lapras, and of course our Venusaur all managed to beat the champion. The game time makes absolutely no sense because I stepped away to take care of my baby and I'm playing at like 5 times speed while this whole thing's going. So ignore that. The real time is what was down below. And the score also made no sense in this one. I gotta fix my overlay on that one because it was counting TMs every time I swapped my Pokemon. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry it's been a little bit delayed. I tried to update the overlay to work properly, but there were still some glitches. So I'm gonna have to dig into that a little bit more. But it turns out that yes, Pokemon Red and Blue with competitive movesets, especially when you get to the champion at the end, is a pretty tough game. And like if I were to ever do a true Nuzlocke challenge, this is the sort of thing that I would want to do it in. You know, if you're doing the typical level cap, which is the highest level of the next gym or the next leader, then honestly, I think we could make this a very interesting challenge with something like a Nuzlocke. But anyway, that is going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Later.